And the role of leadership then changes clearly. And obviously hiring changes, because most likely if you expect people to take decisions and if they're together around one table, well, you might need T-shaped people, yeah, who have broad competency and deep competency at the same time. We thought about how can we change that wine purchasing experience. So we started with a fresh understanding of the customer. What are they wanting to achieve? And what they want to achieve is, hey, we serve spaghetti with clams tonight, I need a fitting wine bottle. And that is what we did. So let's don't strive for excellence in one part or one process or one methodology. Let's rather work on integrating those. This is where we struggle today. It's clearly the way this world needs to develop. Our current ways of living are not sustainable, and
Right.
we need to become more sustainable. It is a big business growth imperative. It's the big story that is currently written and that will be written over the next 2 or 3 decades. And industry leaders out there, I mean, organizations who are innovating in that space will have ample opportunities to capture markets. So they have political support. There is support from the customers out there. That's one of the industries I would definitely bet on currently.
Welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Welcome back to Inside Personal Growth for another edition of our podcast. And joining me from Zurich, Switzerland, it's a few hours time difference, is Stefan Dieffenbacher. And the book that we're going to be talking about is this Wiley book, How to Create Innovation. Good day to you, Stefan. How are you doing in Zurich, Switzerland this afternoon?
Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful election day here.
Yeah, it is election day here in the United States. I don't think it is in Zurich, but it is here. That's for certain. But I do thank you for that. And, you know, when anyone comes on the show with ideas around innovation, and in this one, how to create innovation, which is really unique in itself, the title, and all the work that you put into this all the years, I want to let our listeners know a little bit about you. He's a global industry thought leader in the innovation and transformation space. In his role as a digital executive, game changer, and strategist, he has digital change programs for the top 5 firms across almost all sectors globally. That is really something. You can learn more about this book by just going to, and I want to make sure that I get this right because I've got it up. It's digitalleadership.com. Just go to digitalleadership.com. There also you can learn how to get innovation success for free. There's tools and models. This is a Wiley book, and for all of you who are out there, it is a little bit thick, but it's really filled with, because this was co-created with all of his associates. So the contributions come from all over, and it took, I think you said 5 years to put this together. Is that right, Stefan?
5 years of research. Yeah, it was
5 years of research. So Stefan has expertise across large-scale digital innovation and transformation programs for major firms across most industries. He pairs boardroom-level strategic thinking and deep portfolio management expertise with the ability to execute, with a deep interdisciplinary knowledge and expertise with both strategy and execution. He's strategized, executed, and growth-hacked digital ventures for both startup and corporations. He holds a master's degree and an MBA from Hensley Business School in London. He's also frequently teaches at international business schools. And again, if you want to learn more, you can go to digitalleadership.com. There you can learn more about the book and all of the people he collaborated with to do that. So I want to thank you for taking this time to really be on the show and spend some time with us to talk about the book and literally the resources you have at the website as well. How to create innovation emphasizes that innovation is a process that can be nurtured and developed, right? And I don't think that all business people look at it that way. Why do you believe, or what are the foundational elements that must be in place for innovation to thrive? I don't care if it's at a smaller company or a company like my son works as an executive at Adobe, because every day they're innovating something there, right? And, there are similarities between the people who are smaller trying to innovate and large companies that are trying to innovate as well.
So I think over time, we managed to mature any discipline, yeah? And we managed to mature it by understanding its ingredients, by understanding its many components. And I think innovation consists out of many, many components. You can't think out of innovation, or you have to consider the foundations, culture, the structure, the organizational setup, the right processes and approaches, the right team, of course, funding. There are so many ingredients that play a role. But most importantly, I guess we need to mature that industry. We need to mature innovation, how we approach it, how we do it, and really engineer it in the right way to ultimately increase the success rates. I think that is most critical. Innovation can be engineered and success can be engineered as in any other business discipline. Yeah, and I think that's the most important message, perhaps, of all.
Yeah, and I think engineering innovation is a unique concept in itself. I know that a lot of companies have innovation departments, but then a lot of them don't have that. And kind of in this digital age, which, that's what you approach, it's called digital leadership. Innovation often feels like a buzzword. How do you differentiate true innovation from mere iteration or improvement within a company? So it's like, okay, yeah, I have an iPhone 15 and now I go to an iPhone 16. It might be what we might call an iteration. But according to Apple, when they released the 16, and I'll use them as an example, they were supposed to have AI embedded, and it was the worst release ever because the AI was not there. So I guess the question for you would be, in a company that's $3 trillion strong, making such a big mistake in the innovation cycle, what would you have to say about that?
And before we talk about Apple, perhaps in details, so I think innovation by definition actually is radical in nature. It's not an incremental improvement. It's not transformative. So it's not a step change to one part of a business model, which is the definition of a transformation or a digital transformation. But innovation is truly radical. So it's an entirely new thing for an industry, for a country, for something on a large scale. Otherwise, it's not truly innovative. So innovation, remember that, is radical in nature. Now, I don't know about the mishaps of Apple in that case, but basically, as we move from one iPhone generation to the next iPhone generation, most things remain the same, and some things are incrementally updated. There are sometimes some aspects which can be radical. For example, if truly it would have a game-changing artificial intelligence integrated, but perhaps, and it seems like, I haven't tested it myself, it seems more like it was a marketing hype to manipulate the stocks of Apple, but then I don't know.
Yeah, it was a disappointment for a lot of people, and it was touted as one of the most challenging things. They say that they have it fixed now. So we'll see if that little AI integration into the phone was that good. Now, you discussed the importance of creating a culture. You just mentioned that when I asked you the first question, was this cultural issue of innovation in the book. And I get that having a culture where people are engaged and committed to developing and innovating is important. What are the key characteristics of an innovation culture, and how can leaders foster this kind of environment?
And culture is perhaps the number one most critical component. Yeah, it's always the elephant in the room. And the big problem out there is we don't actually know what culture is. Yeah, everybody believes, oh, it's colorful offices, ping pong tables, sushi for lunches or massages, as we get to believe from some Silicon Valley firms. But the question is, what is it really? And how do I change it towards an innovation culture? And there are numerous ingredients at play, which all together form basically what we call culture. And basically for the first time, we have identified those components and designed a culture canvas, which strategically identifies those most important components of culture that allows you to design your own innovation culture. Now, I can't take you through all of those components, but perhaps a few of them. So
a couple would be good.
Yeah, so most important perhaps is decision making. So as we are incrementally improving, and we are normally in the context of our existing firm, normally decision making is top down. So a director tells from top to bottom what is to be done. In an innovation situation, so you do something profoundly new, nobody has by definition the best answer. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing an innovation probably to start with. So that is why we regroup in teams. We leave the silos around one table and we take decisions together. Yeah? There is no single best person who takes decisions. So we start then communicating on eye level. There is no top-down communication. And the role of leadership then changes clearly. And obviously hiring changes because most likely if you expect people to take decisions and if they're together around one table, well, you might need T-shaped people who have broad competency and deep competency at the same time. And these are some aspects and the right prerequisites that you need to have in place for an innovation culture to truly thrive. So it's truly a mindset shift and a paradigm shift towards value creation from machines to people, thinking in networks, leadership through trust, in blending work-life, perhaps in leading together with your colleagues, as opposed to having a boss, which already changes the wording, etc. These are some of the key aspects that are critical as you consider an innovation culture. And please be invited to download the canvas where you have all of that pointed out, including examples how to set up and define your innovation culture.
Well, I'm looking while we're talking because there's several screens open and, you've been in BMW, you've been in Audi, you've been in IBM, you've been in all of these places. And if you were to give us a real world example from maybe one of these companies, Bayer, BMW, or B&P or something, about how you and your team came in and what you did to assist those organizations in transforming their culture such that it improved that whole innovation element. What are the key takeaways from that experience that you could share with some of our listeners right now? Are like, okay, if I wanted to get in touch with Stefan and I had this big company and I'm listening today to the podcast, what could he really do for me?
I mean, perhaps one general culture, perhaps one general example about innovation to start with that we can all relate to is a supermarket experience. Yeah, and we are all in supermarkets probably every week, and we are shopping for, let's say, wine bottles. Yeah, we're going to find a nice wine bottle for tonight. Huh? Mm-hmm. And wines are normally structured by pricing, and by countries, and that leaves us a choice most of us don't know. So you have a Chateau Lafite in front of you from 2018, and you have a Garibaldi, say, from 2016, and you serve spaghetti with clams, and now, which bottle do you buy? And statistically, it's only 2% of the population who are wine connoisseurs, so really know the shit about wine, and to are able to select among the thousands of bottles there are the perfectly right one because they know it. And that is the struggle people are perceiving there. And so what we did is we thought about how can we change that wine purchasing experience. So we started with a fresh understanding of the customer. What are they wanting to achieve? And what they want to achieve is, hey, we serve spaghetti with clams tonight. I need a fitting wine bottle. And that is what we did. So we rearranged all wines, not by price, not by countries, but by wines to match your cooking style, by what you're going to have to eat. Yeah? And some specific or special wines for weddings or birthdays or whatsoever. And that change was implemented in one of the biggest supermarket chains, both in the stores as well as e-commerce. And it immediately led to a 21% uplift in wine bottle sales overnight, which was $1 billion revenue growth opportunity by just rearranging how we sell wine bottles in a supermarket, both online and offline. What an example. Yeah.
I love that example. Thank you for that. When I do buy wine, I usually buy it at Costco, right? And Costco is the biggest seller of wines. Most people don't understand that. I don't know if there's even Costco in Switzerland or not, but here in the United States, they sell, I don't know if it is $1 billion worth of wine. It's a lot of wine, right? So that was a great example, by the way, of how you reorganized it. So your book covers various methodologies for fostering more innovation. Which methodologies do you find most effective, and how can organizations tailor these methods to fit their unique needs? So if you could get, because this book is the how-to create innovation book. And for most people, the pictures, the graphs, the charts, everything that's in here is a way to help you get to methodologies for fostering innovation.
Absolutely. So this book is perhaps the first book that covers innovation end to end. So we have covered all stages in the process and across all disciplines. And the thing is, now Greg asked me the difficult question, which is the most important one? And actually, I'm not sure I have an answer. Yeah,
right.
It's like asking the architect, which process or which part of the building is most important? The toilet, where you cook, the kitchen, a good bed, lighting perhaps, yeah? And I'm like, I don't know for innovation myself. So I think it's all of them ultimately. You leave some out, you miss to understand customer needs, it's probably very bad, yeah? You missed the business case, it's probably very bad. You missed building the right value proposition, you missed it probably as well. You missed the financials, that's not good. And so perhaps I have a different message. I think in the past, we have been trying to be the very best individual product, the best customer experience, the best financial plan, the best whatsoever. And actually, I think it's wrong. I think to have a mediocre experience is good enough. To have a mediocre brand, to have a mediocre business plan, to have a mediocre value proposition, to have a mediocre business model, all that is good enough. The most important thing, perhaps, is integrating all of those different aspects. This is where teams and organizations fundamentally struggle with. This is where they fail, because the handover points between all those different processes and parts and methodologies normally are missing. So I think let's don't strive for excellence in one part or one process or one methodology. Let's rather work on integrating those. This is where we struggle today.
Yeah, most definitely. And, I know that during the course of you and I getting to know each other over the last couple of months, I introduced you to Greg Galley at Solve Next. And I recognize that, they're all about innovation, as you are, and your team and what you do. And I've always been deeply engaged in this area. Everybody from, we're looking at David Sibbets, who does this work with graphic facilitation and so on. And so you talk about methodologies for fostering innovation. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, is what you just said. It's like, hey, it can't be. How should companies approach the process of identifying a right innovation strategy? Or let's say, and let's pick an industry. You just use the grocery industry. I'm going to use the technology industry, let's say software. how would they pick the right innovation strategy for their specific market or industry?
So, I mean, in general, what we have tried to define is the most likely approach that works in most situations for most companies in that settings. And that works most of the time, yeah. You have to tailor, however, the details. Obviously, if you have a supermarket problem and need to rearrange the structure or presentation of your materials or your offerings, it's a different type of problem than you do deep technology research around AI. Yeah, that is, of course, a very different proposition, a different challenge. One is technology focused, one is customer focused, etc., and so on. So while the fundamental process works in most industries and settings, you have to adjust for the specifics of your industry. There is no common recipe. Here, I think it takes real human intelligence, and with human intelligence, AI is not yet helping us here. Huh? And that it takes a lot of training time to become good at it. So having a track record in an industry is actually beneficial. So you know where are the levers and what you should pay attention to.
You know, I think it was interesting. I was speaking with somebody the other day. We did an interview and discussing it, and they were saying that when you go innovate something new, and we're now talking about the role of failure, they run out forward with something new, and they funded the money to get to the forward motion. What they didn't realize is that maybe there was going to be a failure at the end of that, and they had to have the funds to come back and redo it, right? So her theory was, hey, it's one thing to be thinking about having funds to innovate something new, but do you have enough funds if that fails? Okay. And so how do companies create a safe space for experimentation and failure without risking significant losses? And I would say this is true. Not everything you put out there is a success. It's a learning lesson, and it's iterative in nature, right? Just by the mere fact that this is a new innovation, it's iterative. We don't know if it's going to be accepted or not. We've seen it happen with software. We've seen it happen with a lot of things.
Yeah. And so if you look today, 9 out of 10 true radical innovation initiatives flop, regardless if you are in the startup space or in the corporate space. 9 out of 10 flop. And that is a catastrophic ratio. And I think if you look back 10 years ago, we had the lean startup movement. Yeah? So we tried, that was inspired from Toyota, the lean production way. We do it lean now. Yeah? So we do it extremely fast. That is where the word MVP then came from. Let's build a minimum viable product. And all of those processes are important. Yeah? And the rate of failure, the costs of failure drastically reduced by embedding fundamentally lean approaches. So that movement made sense, but the fundamental problem is still the same. Our success ratio has not improved over the last decade. Well, 9 out of 10 ideas and initiatives ultimately flop. And so I would actually advocate for the opposite. Let's do our approach seriously. Let's validate as early as possible. And let's focus on understanding important but unmet customer needs as a basis for innovation. Yeah? Such as where we rearrange bottles of wine in a supermarket presentation. Let's leverage differentiating capabilities so we truly build an unfair advantage. Let's work with experienced professionals who have a track record as entrepreneurs. These are things you can do right. Yeah? But even if you do a lot of things well, you will still fail occasionally. So you cannot launch a single innovation project if you're serious. You have to always think in terms of a portfolio. But basically, if you take those lessons from the book seriously, you should be able to double and triple your innovation success rate. Having 1 in 3 fail or 1 in 3 succeed is entirely an option if you follow the processes. If you validate throughout, the ultimate measure is we want to increase the investment security. We don't want to be the fastest. That's not a measure I care about. We want to be the guys which offer the greatest investment security. We want to see successes. And we do that by validating early and by validating what needs to be validated as soon as possible.
I don't know how much in this process, but it's a kind of an off-the-wall question for you. But, everybody today is trying to use some level of predictive analytics to kind of figure out what's going to hit them, right? So Rita McGrath talks about connecting the dots and, just being able to see into the future the best we can, right? And I would ask you this question. What advice would you have for companies who are looking at all these factors of innovating something to really get the best data that they possibly could, to have some predictive analytics of the outcome for demand for whatever it's creating, to be able to have more information that would validate that what they're going to put out into the market would be more greatly accepted and utilized, right? And that kind of goes across industries. That's not just, software. That's the wine industry. That's any industry, because we are attempting to change something that will then be adopted and accepted by a consumer in the end, in many cases. Yeah.
So predictive analytics is a concept you originally apply in mechanical engineering. So you have a machine and you see how it is running and what is going to happen next as it continues to run, and when it breaks potentially. And here we have a stable context. So here predictive analytics work extremely well. And predictive data works also rather well when you have a stable context. That's why ChatGPT actually works. Can predict the context. It knows the context. It has all the knowledge in the world, and therefore it can predict the next word. That is the fundamental technology behind ChatGPT and why it works. Now, when we are innovating, we are by definition, at least if we take the word seriously, we are doing something radical. If we are in a radically new market, and we are for the first time doing something new, it's very difficult to predict. Why? You don't have the data by definition. Otherwise, you wouldn't be innovating. That is what is making prediction and predictive data so difficult, and why I would shy away from it. Now, you may be able to have some data.
Maybe that's the difference between iterative, meaning the next iteration, that I'm trying to predict that the iPhone will be accepted. And I think many of the inventions that I see in technology are iterative in nature. In other words, there's been this constant little bit of better. Hey, it's like somebody says, well, what's the roadmap for that software? And you say, well, all of our customers said, we need to put in this, 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 and this, right? And so you obviously, all the programmers are looking at it, they're going, okay, well, we have a demand for 16 new things, but our roadmap says we're only going to put in 5, right? So those are kind of really iterations because it's the next version of the software, right?
Step. And here, as you have already an iPhone, what feature is going to make it more attractive? Well, that is something you can test. You have the basic data for that. So here it works. Otherwise, what I would truly encourage you to do is gain an understanding of the important but unmet customer needs. If in case you're truly working on an innovation, you don't have the data, and the fundamental unmet needs have not or normally are not changing. So to make one example, so 100 years ago, we needed to go to our offices, perhaps use the train, and we wanted to be entertained while we travel. So 100 years ago, that fundamental customer need was fulfilled by me purchasing a newspaper and reading it on the train. That is how it worked 100 years ago. The need is today still the same. We still travel to our job with a car potentially, or with a train, and on the train, or we read the iPhone, still with news on it or something. So it just, the mechanism has changed. The fundamental customer need has not changed. So what you want to analyze in case you don't have the data is you want to identify important but unmet customer needs, or at least partially only met unmet customer needs. And these you can analyze with statistical stability, with statistical predictability. And that is a good basis for innovation, which gives you certainty. That is the next best thing you can resort to in case You have more than a fundamental, you have a more fundamental change ahead.
What are some of the things that you would say are truly, truly innovative that you've seen come out in the last year? Because, as I see it sitting here right now, I'm thinking as you're talking, right? Like, okay, have I seen anything fundamentally which has been revolutionary in nature? Meaning like, whoa, it really made a change. I see all kinds of people doing products. Obviously, we've seen now so many iterations of the electric car, right? Everything from Tesla to you name it, everybody's in the electric car space. But fundamentally, there hasn't been much significant change in the range, the battery, the ability to get better range, and so on and so forth. So I actually
self-driving, man. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there is the car and Google. I was just in San Francisco last week, and what if it's all self-driving? They're actually Jaguars that's what they put on them. They're pretty fascinating to do that. So you're saying that that's one of the most radical things maybe you've seen is this autonomous self-driving taxi cab. What's it called? It starts with a W. I can't think of it.
Cab, which Elon Musk just tried to launch and which was also a fake. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So have you noticed anything from your side? Because you see so much more than I do, that you would say, oh, wow, this is really, really true an innovation which is going to revolutionize the world.
Well, arguably, we have seen the rise of artificial intelligence was the first prominent product which has taken the world by storm. Yes. In the last 18 months. Yeah, and that is going to revolutionize the world. I think everybody is starting to use it now, and it even replaces Google search. So this is about to fundamentally change the world. We have also seen what I found like totally fascinating rockets that can be reused and that can land again. Yeah,
right.
That was fascinating. However, in total, I'm a little bit critical, but I'm seeing less innovation than I think there should be out there. Companies are fundamentally not investing heavily in innovation. It's a huge deception across industries. They are just investing 1% very roughly of their revenues in innovation. And the outcomes we are seeing are much smaller than what you could be thinking. Yeah, and that is very unfortunate. And I mean, we still don't have everything we learned from Star Trek in the last decade. So
one that I'm thinking of while you're speaking, actually, and I just saw a special on it, was the company in Denmark, the drug company that came out with all the weight loss products. Wegovy is one of them, and the other one is, I can't remember the name of it, but they were actually saying that this company, Novo Vardis is that name of it, yeah, in Denmark. That what's happened is this one company has added 3 times the GNP to the whole country. So the amount of money that this company is making now, it's like a 1.5 trillion right now and continuing to grow. So what's happening in Denmark is kind of this revolutionary jobs, housing prices have been able to keep down. All of this kind of stuff is going on. And it was fascinating to see how that company evolved in the innovation. It was one woman who didn't want money for it, who actually innovated it in the lab by looking at these particular cells and how they work. But I would say that that's pretty revolutionary when you think about how much money is being spent on a weight loss drug, right? So
and it's fascinating. I think the company is called Novozymes. But what I think is fascinating is, or what is perhaps a shock, is why does something like that get talked over that much? I mean, are we all too fat? That's the most exciting thing that could happen to us. And it seems like, and it's a little bit of a deception. I mean, we're still not flying around or can beam us around the earth and get nutritions. I mean, there are so many things which possibly could be happening and which we have seen in our science fiction books when we were kids.
Yeah.
We are still far away from, and now we are talking the most important thing. Greg and I managed to discuss the last thing that happened in Denmark. Like, seriously?
Well, what I'm waiting for is the whole Star Trek, when you can beam me up and beam me down. So when you get that one figured out and I can actually end up in Switzerland to interview you at your house, and then I can beam myself back, I'm on for that one. But the key here was leadership. Now I cite that drug company because the leadership was really an important factor. Also, the company is 100 and something years old. So from the founders down, how they really think about what they do with that money that they bring in. Leadership is often cited as a critical factor, as you say, driving innovation. What leadership qualities do you think are most essential for fostering this innovative organization? Now, I listened to the CEO of that drug company talk, and he is the leader. And in most cases, he'd be making way more than $10 million, but they capped his salary at $10 million in Denmark because there's a correlation, right? And it was fascinating what the company, the freedom that they gave the employees and individuals to actually be able to innovate, their autonomy, to work on things, bring things to the forefront. I would say that whole autonomy element was the first thing that impressed me. You have some insights on that as you work with leaders all the time.
So, and it's absolutely the right kind of observation. So, I mean, if we look back and go back in history, we go to the medieval ages, perhaps we had super steep hierarchies. And that's still how our armies function. Yeah, you have the boss is sitting at the top and he ordains to the rest. And what happened over the last decades is that the hierarchies went flatter and they went flatter again, to enable more people. But fundamentally, that principle that we're still in the pyramid principle. Somebody at the top dictates. Just less middle management perhaps around, but we're still at the pyramid principle. And in innovative organizations, perhaps the pyramid then tilts and is perhaps then reversed. The leader is suddenly at the bottom to support those at the top, or we actually don't have a leader anymore and we arrive at a circular structure, organizational structure, where decisions are made together by colleagues who trust in each other, where the communication paths are much shorter, etc. So the entire role of leadership has changed from one who knows it all and to therefore could ordain, which works in a known context, to, yes, the insight that we are indeed in a new, we need new ways of doing. Therefore, the leader, me, can't know it all. Therefore, I trust in the team around me. I enable it. And I'm either at the bottom or I'm perhaps not present anymore. And we are making decisions together. So the leader is, or the leadership of a large organization, perhaps they offer the freedom and they offer fundamental capabilities to the teams, but the teams are self-enabled, can do what they want. I mean, with, of course, guidance, perhaps that they should be going in certain directions and leverage certain elements. But fundamentally, we lead by trust. We go away from line management to innovation and to project management. We think in networks and not in silos anymore. We don't have a top-down structure, but a value creation structure. And we have perhaps other mechanisms of organizing ourselves that are no more bureaucratic in nature. So we think about a sociocracy or holacracy or networked organization, things like that. Now, this is, I guess, the fundamental aspect that have changed.
Yeah, holacracy definitely is a term that's being used more and more. It hasn't been for some time. I like that concept that you brought up. And for all my listeners, definitely go back in my podcast. I actually did 2 podcasts on people that wrote books just on holacracy. Fascinating concept. But so in your opinion, leading more to the future trends and the challenges and changes, how should companies balance the need for disruptive innovation with the necessity to maintain stability in their core business operations? So, okay, so here's Just let's use Apple. All right. AI comes out. They come up with the phone 16. Their core operations is obviously the sales of computers and this, and their software side of things and their iTunes and all the rest of the things, the markets that they've captured. But in essence, that's their core business. That's always been their core business. Now, fundamentally, this last year, we saw them come out with the 3D glasses, right? They came out with that a while ago. Actually, Google came out with the glasses, but I'm talking about the whole thing that you could go into the alternate worlds in, right? I don't own a pair, but it has been an area, and they've said that actually that $3,000 innovation that they've put tons of money into has really not paid off. There hasn't been that big of acceptance of that. And so their core business operations, while maintaining it, they needed to come up with disruptive innovation. Would you consider something like that disruptive, or just, hey, it was another player with another product?
Well, it's basically an entirely new product category that suddenly we could wear intelligent glasses and not carry around laptops. And plus, with the vision capabilities that it can immersively see the environment, enrich your direct eye view, are of course game-changing technology. So yes, this is of course disruptive. It's an entirely new product category, which could potentially change the world. Is the world ready? Apparently not yet. Is the technology ready? Apparently not yet either. And Apple isn't the only company who is struggling with that. Yeah, I mean, Facebook has made an even bigger bet on that technology, and they're equally struggling. I think what you can learn from that is the biggest fad that I've seen in recent years is let's establish a culture of innovation everywhere. Yeah, this is what many CEOs postulated. And I think this is not all about it. Quite on the opposite. If you look at Apple, they have massive manufacturing going on in Asia. These are not guys who do innovation, they manufacture. And that is hundreds of thousands of jobs which are focused on manufacturing. Apple has offices around the world. These are about sales. They're not about innovation either. So I would estimate that 95% of Apple's organization is clearly not about innovation. They're either about manufacturing or sales. And a few guys at the lonely headquarters in Cupertino in Silicon Valley, they are about innovation. They take it seriously to develop the next big things. Yeah. And this is
obviously I don't have their budget, but I would say out of the budget they have, they must have a pretty good sum of money allocated to innovation to keep pace. But I do find certain companies fall short, right? And the younger, more nimble companies coming up actually come up with usually the innovations that we see huge differences in the innovations. It isn't always these big behemoth companies. That's where they have a challenge getting dragged down, which is keeping their current operations going. Like you said, marketing and sales is 95% of what they do. So, moving forward, if somebody's out there listening to this right now as a CEO of a company recognizes they're a little light on the side of innovation, meaning light in the amount of investment, the amount of people, and they'd like to move forward, what is one piece of advice that you would give to the leaders who are just beginning the journey toward creating this innovative organization?
So I guess, first of all, innovation can be controlled. It can be engineered, as we said initially. And I think this is what we have laid out with that book. So I would start, please go ahead, please read the book, please educate yourself about those best and leading practices. They are defined. Leverage those as opposed to running the error of applying your usual thinking and your usual procedures to innovation. That's not how it works. So we have it figured out. It's defined out there. Go and leverage those best practices, get the right kind of teams in place and hit the ground running. Never shy away from it, but be bold, make your moves. And most organizations don't dare to go ahead. And I think this is why in most industries, there is massive potential out there because so little money in the end is invested in innovation. So if you want to be the innovation leader, most organizations have room for such an organization. So go out, be bold, leverage the processes, then the best practices, and you will have good chances of succeeding.
I think one of the things is you can't be afraid because you never know what the investment will return. And if there is trepidation or fear on your part, I think you have to look at it as a way for an advancement. I was speaking with somebody the other day, and I'll just use this as a crazy story, but there was a guy with the name of Anderson and Anderson Carpet Mills. And a really small thing, when people lay carpet, this is a kind of a little weird example, but it's a good example. The old carpet coming out never got recycled. It always went into a landfill. And so here in the United States, this guy revolutionized the industry. He said every fiber that comes out of the old carpet is going to be ground up and reused in the new carpet that my mill makes. And he revolutionized kind of the carpet business that way by actually just taking, you think when you go, well, that's revolutionary. Well, it was kind of, because he had to create all the machines and the technology to take all the fibers and pull it out and then circulate it so that it didn't end up in some landfill somewhere. And I use that example is because so many people don't even look at the obvious, right? And the obvious would be, what can we do to better help the environment around us? Okay, what can we do to better recycle these things to make sure that it's, they call it cradle to cradle, right? In your business, right? Cradle to cradle. And what I see happening is the companies that can innovate around cradle to cradle, the demand from the consumers out there is big. It's very big. Would you agree or not?
I fully agree. It's clearly the way this world needs to develop. Our current ways of living are not sustainable, and
right.
We need a more sustainable. It is a big business growth imperative. It's the big story that is currently written and that will be written over the next 2 or 3 decades. And industry leaders out there, organizations who are innovating in that space will have ample opportunities to capture markets. So they have political support. There is support from the customers out there. That's one of the industries I would definitely bet on currently.
I would agree with you on that. And it's the same thing when you recycle a cell phone or a computer, or you go to Apple and turn it in. None of us really know, Stefan, where it goes. Right? We know it ends up in Asia someplace, and they've got child labor pulling out pieces and parts of these phones, whether it's Android or I would assume maybe Apple has a better control of that. But I would say any of this, when you say, hey, I'm just going to go get a new phone, really think twice. Do you need a new phone? That's what I would say. If the one currently now is working, maybe you don't need it, because a lot of it is just marketing hype. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback from people that are maybe listening to this show, but I would say be a little bit more cautious before you do things like that, because it's very harmful to the environment. I don't know how many billions of phones get recycled each year, but it's a lot. Right?
Yeah, perhaps give it, we live in a very consumerist society. Think perhaps a little bit more about what is truly making a difference in your life. Like, what is truly making you happier? Is the next iPhone making you happier, or is it something else? Because if we have everything, perhaps in the end we have nothing. And perhaps we need to focus more on what is truly making a difference for us and for the world, and not have the next upgrade of everything in our house and gadgets.
I love your philosophy, my friend. I want to thank you for being on Inside Personal Growth and sharing your wisdom and insight about this new book, How to Create Innovation. Go to digitalleadership.com. There's lots of free downloads for all of my listeners. Truly get involved with this. Dig deep into this. If you've got a company, buy one of these books for everybody in your innovation department and have meetings around it. Truly dig into the content. And you can also reach out to Stefan too through the website and all of the people, the network of people that he's really developed. I don't know, was there 60 other authors involved with this? Was it 60?
We had a core team of 60 people and a community of 300 giving feedback.
So a massive project that he undertook. Kudos to you for getting it accomplished, and also kudos to Wiley for actually wanting to actually take this book on and do it, because it was a big project. Thank you so much. Namaste to you. Thank you for everything. Thanks for being on Inside Personal Growth.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.